This afternoon. We're looking really at the benefits of gender diversity. My name is Dr. Monique Boddington. I am the research associate and lead program tutor on the Cambridge Judge Launchpad. And you can hear me. And well, it's not about me today. It's about our two alumni I've got with us today. So let me first introduce Cecile. Cecile, would you mind turning on your webcam?
Hello.
Yes, the technology works. That's wonderful. So Cecile, who is alumni of the postgraduate diploma from Boddington, and also just jumping in there for a second, Rochelle. From the books of, so two of our wonderful alumni who are both founders of both very successful ventures. So how this session will work is I will have a number of questions that I will direct both at Rochelle and Cecile. And that'll take about half of today's session. And then really, I want to turn it over to those people, those participating, watching from across the world, to ask, their own questions, whether it's about their experiences, both on the program, but also focusing on their entrepreneurial journey. So really, I want to really hand it over to these two amazing ladies. So, perhaps starting firstly with Rochelle, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and, your business as well?
Microphone.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Microphone.
Okay, great. I gather you said Rochelle there, because
Yes,
I wasn't sure if you said, okay, great. Hi, so hello everyone, I'm Rochelle, and thank you Monique for the introduction. Basically, I started a business I'm starting out a course at CBJS, and grew it during my time there. It's actually called the Box Off, which is a subscription business. The idea is around a subscription box with monthly deliveries, encouraging people to self-care with a mixture of items from stationery to encouragements, words, spa type content, and advice from people in the wellbeing industry. And the whole idea and concept behind that is to encourage people to have more inspired wellbeing routines in an age where people are stressed out and overburdened and overwhelmed. And I work with my sister, who is also my co-founder, and we really managed to push the venture along while we were at Cambridge. And I basically want to talk a bit about that today. So that's what I'll be talking about.
Thank you very much, Rochelle. And Cecile?
Thank you very much, Rochelle. And Cecile, you've had quite a journey through the program. I remember you started with one idea.
Yeah, I think I probably had the strangest pivot of the year, Monique. So my background is advertising. I worked in some of the big agencies in London for about 14 years. And had a lot of fun doing so. So I worked on big chunky accounts like Guinness, like Mars, like Sony. And then I moved on to an executive search business, which actually works within that creative space. So kind of working with senior talent in the creative industries. And then I kind of had a bit of a moment 2 years ago, and I just thought, is this what I want to be doing forever? And I always had it in my mind that I was going to have my own business one day. But I had all kinds of questions about how I was going to go about doing that, which I'll get on to later on. But basically what happened is I joined the course with an idea around children's glasses and helping education around children's eyesight, which is a really big thing for me. But as things went on, it turns out that my husband in the background had just launched a gin, and it started to make a lot of sense actually to really get involved with the gin and not to try to have two startups in one house, which I think would probably have been a bit much even for us. So I'm now marketing director for One Gin, which has grown a hell of a lot in the last 2 years. It's our 2-year birthday next Friday, actually. And yeah, we're in Tesco, we're in John Lewis, we're getting ready for export. And there's a lot of stuff going on that probably wouldn't have happened if I hadn't done the course.
Okay, Okay, so two amazing businesses. I will try and run this down with the following questions where I'll let you jump in naturally as though we were sitting in the same room, but we'll see how that goes in reality. So, what motivated you to kind of, A, go on the program, but then also B, set up these businesses?
Maybe I can, I should probably raise my hand.
It doesn't work.
I think in my case, I was so conscious of over-indexing on a specific set of skills. So I've done marketing and advertising all my life, and so that's the stuff I really know. More recently, I've done a lot of work, obviously, with talent and staff and HR. But I was so conscious that I was missing a whole chunk of expertise, notably in terms of business modeling, in terms of finance, which has always been my weak point. And I just really joined the course because I felt like I needed to build up a whole set of skills to kind of have that rounded approach to business.
Yeah.
Rochelle?
Yeah, similar to Cecile.
And
actually,
for you,
my background's
Rochelle?
also in marketing. So I was and have been working in television, so for ITV, and what in big brands like that, where everything's crazy and busy and high risk because it's on air, people get burnt out on a regular basis. So I've seen the effects of just a crazy lifestyle, not only on myself but on others, and watched people really flounder because of it. I was motivated personally to bring in self-care as routine by seeing people literally crumble at their desks, and also seeing how the kindness of from one person to another, people, ensuring that they have time out, making sure that they're okay, that those kind of things, and seeing that kind of thing in action in quite a touchy-feely kind of environment made me want to do that and conceptualize that into a product. The reason I came onto the course was really because I wanted to have the network, I wanted to grow my skills. In terms of marketing, sometimes you work on these big projects and you don't get into the nitty gritty, but when you're doing something for yourself, entrepreneurially, you have to do absolutely everything. And that's what I really wanted to get a handle of, and be in a community of like-minded people to help me along the way.
Okay, so you both touched a little bit there on your quite similar, but different backgrounds. How well did those backgrounds prepare you for the path ahead in a way? Rochelle, do you want to kind of cover them? Maybe Cecile, if you've got any points to add.
If you're doing a consumer business, which I think both me and Cecile are, the amount of marketing that you need to know, the marketing know-how you need to know is really big, and that's one of the things that anybody on the course could really take benefit from, the modules around marketing, growth marketing strategies. That was really key for us. So it prepared us in that way. The way we weren't so prepared for, perhaps, is just the level of work that's probably involved. And that's me, I'll say that for me personally. When you have to take charge of the whole thing, it's a whole different topic to corporate, and you are personally responsible, you're personally passionate, and you want to see what you do succeed. So there's a whole nother level of pressure, I would say.
Cecile, do you have anything to perhaps add from taking your background?
So
and
I
moving
agree
into this space?
with you, Rochelle. I think what was brilliant about the course is that it really started with the consumer, so incredibly consumer centric, which obviously is kind of what we've both done in the past. So that was kind of known territory, which was probably a good place to start. I think what was really good for me is the structure. So the course is incredibly well structured in terms of every module kind of covers different skills, and every week covers different parts of those skills. So you just really feel like you're taken along on a journey. So whilst you will feel more comfortable with some modules than others, I think there's always somewhere where you're going to find that it resonates with you and you've done a bit of that. So there is always an opportunity also for different people to shine at different points during the course. And I thought that was brilliant, again, in terms of self-confidence, because there are definitely moments where you are outside of your comfort zone. and kind of thinking, you know, am I the only one here who doesn't get this? But on other ones, for example, pitching, for example, which is something that I kind of grew up with, you had your opportunity to kind of, you know, do your thing, which is great.
So you touched, you know, a little bit there in terms of, you know, it's not always the easiest of things and it's quite full on with the amount of work. You know, what were the main barriers you faced in setting up your ventures?
Yeah. I think for me there were there's probably three things. The main one is there's a bit of a sense of not knowing how to go about it. So, and this is to be honest one of the main reasons that I joined the course, which was where do I start? You know, what do I need to think about? Just this sense of kind of getting yourself into this mad journey and not really knowing what you're doing. So there's a lot of floundering around and therefore lost energy and loss of focus. And I think the other thing as well I'd say is that there's a lot of getting bogged, you just get bogged down in the day to day, you know, there is so much to do, especially when there's just two of you, and you end up kind of defaulting a lot to the things that you know how to do, and therefore putting off the really big stuff that, you know, you're not so comfortable doing. And again, that goes back to what I was saying about complementing your skill set, and, you know, not letting yourself do that kind of thing of just kind of doing the small stuff and not looking up over the parapet.
What about you?
Yeah, I'd say definitely.
Rochelle, what about you?
Time management was something that was really challenging, and I think I brought that up every term. Just really managing just managing workload. At the time, I was working sort of part-time, full-time in TV, doing the venture as well as doing the course. And so with that, I mean, and it's not dissimilar to, you know, if you were just doing a startup, because there's still a lot of elements involved. It was just really trying to manage that time. And similar to what Cecile said, there's an area where you need strategic vision and you need to be quite visionary. And that's what the course really brought out in us. You know, where are you going? What is your strategy? Why are you doing what you're doing? At the same time, you're trying to get the actual practical things done to actually launch things and make them happen practically. As well as keeping your everyday life and every day of your business going. So between operations, strategy and everything, I think that the biggest barriers was just time management, I would say. And I think it's each to their own as to how to work out how they do that. And I think we all had that you know, had to deal with that and manage that.
Okay, so directly off that then, Rochelle, how did you manage
I have
all
a really
those
sophisticated color-coded calendar system, which I shared with everybody. I confused everybody. I have that. So basically, the idea was I had to really look at the spread of everything that was going on. And allocate time to it. It was as simple as saying, it was as simple as saying, this is how much I've got to study. This is how much time I have to work on my idea. This is how much time I have to create vision, and keeping those things in the diary. And really just kind of time management. And this is how much time I have to rest and socialize, because you can't do a business about well-being and rest and never rest, which is my bigger challenge. You know, staying core to my own values, which was quite a challenge as well. So I think that just learning your own methods, working with the apps and the things that you like. For instance, I liked project management apps. They'd help me. Trello would help me. Google Calendar would help me. So it's just really finding the things that suit you. I don't know, Cecile, did you have any tips on how you managed your time?
I don't feel that was one of my big things for some strange reason. I think I'm quite anal with my time. I always have been. So there's just this sense of just being incredibly rigorous. I have 2 kids on top of it all. So I think you just kind of, you have to navigate your time. I think, let's be honest, there's a lot of late nights. So my time is kind of stretched into the night, basically. That's how I manage it.
Yeah.
It always interests me because it's something I hear a lot. It always interests me because it's something I hear a lot when I'm speaking to people with businesses, they've often got families, they've often got caring responsibilities, maybe even other jobs as well if they're just setting up. What keeps you going when it gets, those long hours? What keeps you going
Well,
through them? Cecile,
this answer really comes
maybe?
from the heart, actually. What keeps so at the moment I'm still working. I'm working in two jobs. So on half of the week I'm actually still doing my exec search job, and the other half I'm working for One Gin. I should also say that One Gin has is a gin with meaning, because we give back to we fund water projects in the world's poorest communities. So I think there's a real element of meaning that obviously I haven't found before. But over and above that, I think it's about personal fulfillment. When it's your own, when you're doing it for yourself, when every decision that you make, you see the impact of in the next day and the next month. When you choose who you want to work with as well, it just changes everything, because you are in the driving seat, and it's just an amazing feeling. It's quite difficult actually navigating the two, and some days being back in someone else's business and not making the decisions. But also, and obviously this relates to the theme of this session. I've got two little girls, and to be able to show them that, mummy at her ripe old age of 43, kind of started all over again and can kind of do her own thing is really exhilarating, actually. It was, we took them to the graduation last week, and I was just really proud to show them that, you don't have to necessarily do the corporate route, and there's another way, which is very, very exciting, albeit very tiring.
That's wonderful, Cecile. And Rochelle, what about you? How do you get through those long hours and there's also when
Yeah.
things go wrong, which is something entrepreneurs
I
have to
definitely
deal
think it's
with.
ambition and motivation. How ambitious are you? If I feel like if you're not very ambitious about it and you don't mind, there's so many opportunities to just drop it, leave it, drop the ball. And that ambition is rooted in passion, really. So I think choosing something, choosing a venture, choosing a project that you are actually passionate about is really
Yes.
key. For me, it's lifestyle. It's something that I sometimes learn from the business itself. I'll sit there and go, oh God, I haven't been doing any of that. I need to do more of it. So I'm learning even from the things that we're creating. And then another thing that really pushed me on and encouraged me was just customer feedback. Having watching customers order and seeing their messages to their friends and their messages to their colleagues. Hi Sarah, I know you've been really stressed, you've been going through a bad time. Here's a pick me up. Here's a subscription. Those kind of things really, really encouraged me. And actually, they used to come in. They'd come in at the most awkward times when everything was, really, really, really busy, or something had gone wrong. You'd see a spate of emails, and then we would literally, I'd stand there and go, "This is why I'm doing this." So I think that having a passion for what you're doing is really key.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. So, obviously this is not just something that happens overnight, and things don't always go completely to plan. So I would say, kind of what was the key learning you take away from kind of setting up these ventures? What was the biggest learning perhaps you learned along the way that you would tell someone else who was perhaps setting up a
My
business?
biggest learning, I think, from
Rochelle?
the course was just understanding when to scale and also staying in your lane. So there's an element where everybody's doing different ventures at the same time, and different people are popping up and doing superstar things, and others are in sort of hibernation and it's taking longer, and you can get really sort of discombobulated by everything that's going on, and thinking you should be doing this or you shouldn't be doing this, or and I think that you really have to know your business and your timing, and to know how to stay in your lane and what you should be doing at the right time, which the course encourages you to do, because it's very personal to what you're actually working on. And so I think that just staying quite focused is something that I particularly learned actually in all of it, and just to really just drill down those milestones. So what is it I want to achieve? So we had an opportunity sort of every couple of months, every term, to make an impact and report on that impact. And for me, it was a case of using those milestones as goals and saying, right, I want to get some great press here. I want to move to the next level here. Scaling isn't now, but it might be then. And it's just really understanding your own time frame, I would say. That's what I learned.
What about you? What were and Cecile, what about for you? What was the key
I kind of
setting up One Gen?
My learning is around the course as well, is because obviously it ended up being so the journey of One Gen and my personal journey are very close. But I think one of the things that I really lived in during the course was this kind of test and learn approach that, you know, literally permeated everything we did. And I came from a background where, you know, you did things in a specific order and it would take several months and then you would output a beautiful campaign. And I just think in a completely different way now. And, you know, there's just this sense of, you try something, it fails, you stop. You try something else, you stop. You know, and there's this, and you try different things in parallel. And this sense of, you know what, it's fine. It's fine if it doesn't work out. If this doesn't work out, we'll try something else different. So it's real mindset, actually, which I think you have to have as an entrepreneur, and just this kind of breaking this sense of a linear journey. It just doesn't work like that. And then the other thing is this, you know, I was going back to this fear I had of the financials. I think it's probably linked to the fact my father's a banker, but I think it just really helps me to, you know, as Rochelle was saying, the pitch, you know, and it helps me to formulate, to not be scared of numbers, basically, and to start to put together a pitch that could go to investors, and to kind of understand that the numbers only kind of tell the story. And that was a really big thing for me, because it's just the financial thing has always been such a barrier.
I mean, this kind of linking to that. So one of the things is we recognize that, you know, there are women entrepreneurs at a lower rate than men. And a lot of research has shown us that really an important element is resources and access to resources. And women will often experience additional resources, additional barriers to resources. And I mean, not saying that you necessarily have experienced these barriers. I'm just interested in terms of, how did you leverage what you already had in setting up your business? And, you know, how did you gain those resources really that you needed to set up that venture? You know, whether that's financial resources, whether that's the networks you require, you know, do you have anything perhaps in terms of you've learned in terms of clever ways of leveraging and in gaining those new resources?
So the first thing I should say is that I've, you know, whether on the course or in my personal journey as an entrepreneur, which is still a relative new journey, I haven't really felt that I was, you know, that it made a difference whether I was a woman or not. I think it's an industry, whether I'm talking about spirits now, spirits is an industry where there are less women anyway. So actually being one, in a way, makes you more interesting and a bit different. But what I've found, and what I'm really leveraging at the moment, is that the timing is brilliant for us, because there is a real acknowledgement that, you know, there's not enough female entrepreneurs, and there's a real desire to support. And therefore, there are a lot of pitching opportunities at the moment for women. So, for example, in a couple of weeks, I'm pitching at the Albright, which is a fantastic club and group of female entrepreneurs that just really nurture and encourage women. And so I'm actively seeking those pitching opportunities at the moment, because there's more and more of them, and they're becoming really high end and premium opportunities to meet investors.
You needed. And Rochelle, what about you in terms of gaining the resources you needed?
Being a woman in as an entrepreneur, actually, because there were a lot of female networks available for me to use in terms of networking socially. So we just at the beginning we were going to sort of Google's campus, And there were sort of also all sort of mix of events happening there, which we could actually connect with. Likewise, at CJBS, we were able to just sort of really connect with people, both the guys and the girls. And I think that there was a sense of a sort of a camaraderie, which I think really benefited actually the entrepreneurial journey. I found that when it came to, say, marketing online or social media in the wellbeing space, female networks were really key. So I didn't actually struggle for my particular industry. I found that quite natural and easy. I think that when it comes to the second stage around sort of scaling and pitching, I have specifically actually pulled out different advisors that are a mixed male advisors, etc. Just because I know that space is a little bit different. It's really encouraging to hear from you, Cecile, that there are lots of different opportunities for women as well.
Yeah,
I know that traditionally it has been quite male dominated, so I wanted to get that kind of breadth of insight into it. I think that the main thing is, again, if you're good at what you're doing, you're passionate at what you're doing, you will stand out in whatever area you're in. And I think that we've been equipped on the course with a lot of the tools on how to make an impact and how to present well. So that was great.
I have actually two questions.
So I have actually two questions left. The first one, let's try and get maybe a little bit controversial. Maybe, I don't know. So in my work, so I do a lot of work in gender and entrepreneurship, and one of the things you come across a lot is these stereotypes. Whether it's, kind of in academic papers, in policy papers, watching popular TV, you see a lot of these stereotypes around entrepreneurship. So, rather than sticking to perhaps that stereotypical viewpoint of what makes a good entrepreneur, what do you think are the key skills someone requires to, really take off?
Well, I think the first one is resilience. It is about keeping going. I think it's the first 3 months are incredibly exciting. And you go, I'm doing something that no one else is doing, and look at me. And then I think it's after that it becomes tough, because there's no cash. There's a lot of bad news that comes your way, and I think there's just this sense of kind of hanging on and for the duration. And I think you made a really good point, Rochelle, which is that it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, and if you don't look after yourself, it's not going to work. And I did that last year, where I was just burning the candle at both ends and constantly working. And I got to November, and I could barely stand up. I was horrible to everybody. I just really took some time out at Christmas to just think about me, and who I am and what do I want. And I think I've got a very different attitude to it now, which is, I've just got to keep happy and sane in order for the business to keep happy and sane. So I think that was quite a revelation, but you got to live it to realize.
Yeah.
What were the key skills you think make
What about for you, Rochelle? What were the key skills that you think make a good entrepreneur?
I think is a little bit misrepresented, is the idea that this entrepreneur has to be really big character, bright ideas, fast talking, this kind of stereotypical kind of vision of what an entrepreneur is. But not only on this course, but also outside, you realize actually that's not exactly the case. And we looked at a little bit about sort of introverted entrepreneurs as well, and different types of people who still make a powerful punch without having to be just one type of person. And I think a lot of it comes down to the tenacity. And we had some studies around leadership, and I think that kind of tenacity, the integrity of a leader within a business is really key as well. So I think that just knowing that actually being hardworking is actually so key, more than you think. It's not all about getting, adapting, flipping, moving on to the next project. A lot of the time you have to work through the project to make it happen, and for other people to believe in you and see that just how passionate you really are.
I think there's some really wonderful points there. Okay, so one question, then I'll open up to the audience. So if anybody listening out there does have any questions, please type it into the box you'll see, the chat, and I will pass them on to our alumni and speakers today. So, very last question. What's your best, fondest memory from your year in Cambridge? Jump in whenever you feel.
It must have been the pitching.
Jump in whenever
the pitching was extraordinary. At the very end of the year, we got the opportunity to pitch in this wonderful, wonderful space in one of the colleges, wood paneled and all, and it just felt like a bit of a magical place, really. And every single one of us who wanted to pitch got the opportunity to pitch. And I think it was very much, for me, it was the culmination of the whole year, because it kind of, obviously the pitch is the distillation of your venture, but also it's how you present it. And I think there was this wonderful atmosphere in that room of, we had an amazing cohort of 70 people. And I think there was this, everyone in that room wanted you to succeed. It was pretty amazing, really. Actually, on one of the pitches, it was so incredibly emotional that everybody started to cry. It was a great day.
For you, Rochelle, what's your fondest memory?
Yeah, the pitching was a great moment. Just
and for you, Rochelle, what's your fondest memory?
And you could see everybody's ideas in such a snapshot. But one of the things that I really loved was actually leading up to every major assignment. We would all, especially we had a breakout teams, different groups that we'd work in, and we would all really pull together to try and get it done, and we'd be backing each other. So there was loads of these micro moments where we were all in, supporting each other, working, around the clock to try and complete that next stage of our project. And it was that sense of network, which is one of the reasons I actually came onto the course, that sense of support, which really, made my year, actually. And that network still continues, so it's great.
No,
that's wonderful. And there were no late nights during the residential, were there? So, does anybody perhaps have any questions who are listening? I can't see anybody in the text box. I'll ask another question in case then no one else wants to jump in. Obviously one of the things we're doing is we're kind of, having individuals who are perhaps thinking of applying for the program, or perhaps wondering about the kind of, diversity on the program. Who is it for? What do you think it helps people to do? What would your advice be to someone who?
That's a really good question. So when I found the program, I was obsessed about it. I didn't want to look at any other program. I just loved the fact that it was incredibly practical, because for me it wasn't about going back to studying to learn theoretical stuff. I just wanted to kind of get the tools. I just wanted to know how to do it. And I haven't found a course like this one anywhere else. And so it just became something I really wanted to do, but I was convinced that I was probably too old, that I didn't have the right background, and that, all the other people who were doing it would be 20 to 30-year-old bright somethings who had already had a couple of the startups. And I was really wrong, actually. I think what was amazing about our group of people is that, first of all, they came from, 56 different countries. So it was crazy. We had people from Mongolia, we had people from Salt Lake City, it was everywhere. So the wealth of culture was really like nothing I've ever come across before. But also in terms of the age, there was someone who was 23, some guys were in their 60s. So it was just this massive mix of people who literally were at the very, very beginning of their journey, some who were quite a way down the line. So it is really about attitude. That's for me, it was the most wonderful thing, because it just wasn't about your academics or CV, which I kind of assumed it would be, but it wasn't. Yeah.
Having the right attitude, then, I guess, is what you're saying, Cecile, summed up. We've got a couple of questions, but let's just ask Rochelle, what advice would you give in terms of someone
Yeah, I mean,
the
this
program?
is just to anyone who comes on the program,
who's it
actually.
for?
Cambridge is Cambridge, so it can be quite intimidating when you first come. You know, you're thinking, oh my goodness, what have I got to contribute? You know, am I good enough? Or I am good enough, but who are these people? What are they, you know, how many steps ahead of me are they? And, you know, after your first, I'd say, week at residential, or even maybe your first session or day, you realize that a lot of people are just human, and they all come in with the same similar concerns, similar worries and stresses. And actually, what I found is after the first day or first week, you really realised that everybody was in the same boat. And so it's nothing to be over intimidated by. It's something to go for if that's what you're passionate about. If you're passionate about bringing a venture to life practically, then I'd say go for it.
I think that's a really, really good point. I know I've taught on the program for a few years now, and it can sometimes be a bit, so much going on, and Cambridge is Cambridge, which can be, you know, both a warm place, but both kind of, you know, quite awe-inspiring, and, you know, it's definitely worth bearing with it, and, you know, leaning on your other students as well as, you know, the program team as well. So I've got a couple of questions. So obviously one from Sebastian, who's coming to the program, applying for training next year. So do you have any recommendations for new students?
I think probably two recommendations. I think this is a course where you know, you get as much as you give in. And there were a lot of people, there were people all the way on the spectrum on that. So some people who were much less involved than others, but I started off thinking, oh my God, look at the amount of reading there is to do every week. And I thought, oh God, I'll just do a bit. And then I realized that it just wasn't going to work. And I then just very quickly realized, you know, I'm just going to try to throw myself into this properly. And it was, you know, it is a lot of late nights, but it's also the course content is so interesting and so diverse, and every week is different. And I think that's what keeps you going as well, because even if there's something that isn't really your thing, then next week is going to be different. So I would just say kind of go for it from an academic perspective, but also a lot of the value that you get from the course is about networking. So, you know, it's really about taking the time to talk to all these incredible people that, you know, that you're going to be exposed to, and making sure that you get to know every single one of them, because as an entrepreneur, what you find out is that networking is 80% of it. You know, there's always going to be someone who is probably going to be your consumer anyway in some shape or form, or who's going to know someone, or who's going to want to help you, or who's done it before. So you've just got, I mean, the wealth there is just extraordinary. So for me, that's really something to be aware of, and again, throw yourself into.
To the program. And Rochelle, do you have any recommendations for new students coming to the program?
And come up with some backup strong ideas as well. So just as Cecile was saying earlier on, she pivoted her idea. I actually didn't pivot my idea, I just developed it further. But what I noticed is the biggest struggle was when people had to, or were thinking about changing their idea because they realized it wasn't viable, and having the pressure of delivering, whether it be their essays or their assignments, while changing their idea at the same time. So come with a little, I mean, most of you are probably entrepreneurs, you've probably got all sorts of ideas coming out, you know, just maybe 3, maybe 4. I'm just giving these numbers off the top of my head, but just a couple of ideas so that you don't get caught up worrying about an idea rather than progressing with what you're learning, because really this is all about practically learning at the same time, and you don't want to hold that up.
Yeah, and I think Cecile. It's a great point, Rochelle. Yeah, and I think Cecile has had one of the biggest pivots I've personally seen from children's classes and reading to gin. You know, there's not much link there. I don't think so. Not that I can say. But it is. You know, we joke about it, but it is quite normal. I mean, I teach startup elective. I know this myself. A lot of ventures will pivot as they start building their business model. It does happen. Whether it's quite as drastic as Cecile's, or even Rochelle, you know, I know you've changed direction and developed your venture as well. So, you know, it is very normal to start kind of thinking and changing that venture as you move along. Okay, so we've had another question from Christina. When you're starting and still keeping a full-time job, What is the most important thing to focus on?
I had that similarly, and I was also getting married at the same time.
Rochelle.
So there was like 3 things on the go, key things that were on the go. And I found that prioritization was the key. And not only that, though, because all 3 were important to me. So it was about what was a priority and when. So I think that just as, I mean, if you read any kind of entrepreneur blog, etc., it's about, okay, what at the start of your day, where are you going to put your energy? You know, where does your energy need to go at the start of the week? And then being quite, you know, ruthless with your boundaries around that. And I think there's a lot of boundaries that happen around when you are juggling, and you just have to be aware of what it is that motivates you and why, and what your priority is at any given time.
What about you, Cecile?
What about you, Cecile? You know, obviously you started this. You had a full-time job, 2 young girls. You know, and you know, business coming out and starting as well as studying. So you know,
I think to Rochelle's point, I think you just need to carve out times that are going to be, you know, obviously there's the work time, and then there's going to be the studying time. There's going to be time on your venture. A little bit of time for your kids. That's fine. So,
is that a lower priority?
Yeah. No, it's not. But it's about, I used to kind of have, you know, I think it was my Wednesdays and Thursday nights or evenings, you know, carved out for studying. And that was a bit of a, you know, it was systematic, and I kind of, in my head, it was clear. The other tip I would give you actually is, Christina, is to talk to your employers and make them aware that you're on this course. You know, they should normally embrace that. You know, it's an amazing thing to do. And I was blessed because my employers, you know, agreed to kind of bring down so I was actually on part-time whilst I was studying, which really, really helped. So if you can get any element of flexi time, it does really help.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you often...
It's a really good point. Yeah, I mean, you often have this kind of in mind that you're doing this somehow in isolation. And I'm wondering whether this is one of these kind of stereotypes of the lone heroic entrepreneur. And in actual fact, it's not. Most entrepreneurs, you know, when you're doing this, you're being supported by your family, your friends, you know, the other people in your network. So don't, I think, be afraid also to ask for help from those people in your network.
Co-founder relationships, or we're in businesses where we aren't completely solo. So it is about discussing with your business partner, and, you know, taking the pressure off at certain seasons of the business, or moving in different areas. So it's about being flexible with your team.
Mm-hmm. So another question from Christina.
I think that's a very, very good point. Yes. So another question from Christina. Do you have an advisory board? And if so, how did you go about selecting?
Probably one more for you, Rochelle.
Advisors?
We're still in the process of developing one.
Yeah.
Maybe you can talk a little bit about how you developed one, and Cecile, how you go for the
I've got a couple of key people, and the main way that I got them actually was through just personal networking. So one of them I actually met while on my full-time job. So just like Cecile said, all my company knew what I was doing at the same time and was supportive of it. And so this wasn't any backhand thing, but this guy from Twitter, the head of Twitter, came along to do a talk on balancing your time. And I reached out to him straight after his talk at ITB, and then met up with him personally, and then he became an advisor on my board. Now he was doing a similar thing, working in media, and also working for a major media brand, as well as working on a well-being project, which was like a book, a podcast, all around well-being. So he was like the perfect match for me because he had the same blend of skills. So I think it's about, but at an advanced level in different areas, and he was well connected. So I think it's about working out what it is you probably need for your business, and then keeping your eyes open being bold and willing to talk to people, going to the right events, but also there's off-the-cuff opportunities like the one I had, and then being willing to really, and this stuff is covered in the course, but think about what kind of framework you want them in and how you want to connect with them on a regular basis and go forward. I meet with mine every sort of 2 months or every month, but I can talk to him at any time, and that's there's a wider board to that as well. There's a wider couple of other people as well.
About, putting an advice in place.
Cecile, any thoughts about, kind of
we are
putting an
not quite there
advice
yet
in
is
place?
that the temptation for us anyway has been to ask people we know and like, which of course you should like your advisors, but what we're now trying to do is to be a little bit more rigorous about it and to really think about, what our next milestones are going to be. And in our case, it's getting investment and export. And obviously we also need a strong financial brain as well. And I think those are the 3 types of areas that we would like to get advisors on board with, because that's where the need is. So that's what we want. I think also, to Rochelle's point, it's about finding people who are ahead in the journey, ideally who've done this before, ideally in our space, so in the spirits category, and ideally a mix in gender as well. That would be the perfect board.
Yes, obviously, diversity, cognitive diversity is a very key factor in terms of teams and advisory boards. Okay, so it appears we don't have any questions, so I thought we'd finish on kind of one final question. You've done all of this. You both have businesses that are now scaling. What looking back, I guess, what's the one thing you really take away from all of this?
It's hard because there isn't really one. I think what I'll do is I think if I were to, again, based on my limited experience, but in terms of what I've learned so far, in terms of my learnings and what I would say to someone who was starting off in this kind of mad world of entrepreneurship is this thought about not being scared to fail. I think there's an amazing support network out there. People really want to help. It's extraordinary how anyone that is in this kind of world just wants to help another. So it's okay. Just don't wait, for ages and ages and ages for things to be perfectly crafted and perfectly finished. It doesn't work like that. If you've got a half-baked idea, but it sounds like a good idea, then go off and talk to people and share it, and other people can help you craft it and make it better. And then the only other thing I would say is this necessity to pause sometimes, to just kind of not, you do get bogged down in the day-to-day, you do get tired, you do lose sight of the bigger objective. And I think it's really important to give yourself these times, whether it's every month, every 2 months, every 6 months, where you just pause and go, okay, where are we on the journey? Or is it going to plan? Do we need to pull the plug? So that sometimes you just kind of just breathe. It's easy to say, by the way.
Okay, Rochelle, finding closing remarks from you. I mean, what do you take away?
And that is to keep going. So what I don't mean is like keep flogging a dead horse, but what I do mean is keep going, rest, but don't quit. If you have an ambition to be an entrepreneur and you want to run your own thing, and that is your goal, then you have to just have that mindset that, yep, whether it be for every failure, through every opportunity to quit, for every rest period, there is something else beyond, and you have to keep reaching for the prize goal, which is whatever you've set that out to be, whether it be an entrepreneurial lifestyle or a great business that just has a great meaning in the world. I think you need to keep going, and just sometimes, even if you just remind yourself on that, on the days when you're half dead, on the days when you are something's just fallen through, you need that inner rhetoric going on saying, okay, keep going, you can do this. So that would be my last thoughts.
That was great. Well, I think
that was great. Well, I think we'll close it up there since there are no more questions. Thank you so much, Rochelle and Cecile, for your time today. Really, really appreciate it. And I have to say, having kind of, been around and watched you both through the diploma. I'm really personally excited to see the next steps in both your businesses moving forward. And thank you very much to everybody who's been listening today. I hope you have enjoyed it. If you do have any further questions at all, please do get in contact with the program team. Otherwise, I guess I will.
Thank you. Bye. Good luck, everyone.
Thank you. Goodbye, Rochelle, Cecile.